Do you guys want to camp in the Florida Keys? You need to watch this video. Hey everyone, welcome to Tigner Adventures. My name's David. My wife Ninette and we have been full-time now for 8 years. So we're starting our 9th year of full-time RV living, and we have been traveling all over the country. So as it sits right now, we have been to every state within the United States, and we have been to all the provinces of Canada, excluding I think 3. So we have got things pretty well covered. Well, we have not stayed in the Florida Keys or really spent much time in Florida itself. And we have friends that spend time in Florida, and they have told us that we need to come down there. And so typically we've always spent our time in Arizona during the winter, and this year is different. So this year we are in Arizona for a couple weeks, and then we are heading, making our way to Florida. But one of the issues is getting into the Florida Keys. Now, we use a software subscription service called RV Trip Wizard from RV Life. This is our map for the coming 25 to 26 year, and we are currently in Arizona. So if I zoom down here, we're in Foothills Village in Arizona. And if you have been following us, then you know a few videos ago, I can't remember when that was, but we did a video on that we purchased 1,000 Trails. And one of the reasons we did that, there's 2 reasons really. One of the reasons was that it was a good price at the time, and that's how the whole thing worked. But we were trying to figure out how we can move around the country without spending so much time trying to figure out how to boondock and things like that. It is kind of nice to be able to plan things out ahead of time into a lot of different RV parks, and that's where 1,000 Trails kind of came in. And the idea was that with 1,000 Trails, they do have 2 parks down in the Florida Keys, and we wanted to go spend a month or so down in the Florida Keys. If you already own 1,000 Trails, I'm hoping that this will kind of give you an idea on some of the ways to make those reservations, okay? Some things are not quite as straightforward as you would think they were, unfortunately. So anyway, we had our eyes opened on a few different things, and we want to share some things with you. If you look at this map here, I mean, we are staying in a lot of 1,000 Trails. So that's what the little green circles are. And so we are staying in a lot of different places that are 1,000 Trails. And one of the cool things I like about this, I turn on my parks right here. I'm going to turn on my filters. So right now we have, that's the filters turned off. You can see that I can see all these different campgrounds, state parks, everything. If I turn my filters on, I'm just gonna hide that now. All I see now within my filters is just 1,000 Trails parks. So it's very easy for me to pick out, a park that's gonna be along the direction that I want to travel, and then I can actually go into 1,000 Trails and work on booking that. One of the things with 1,000 Trails, and this goes with any park really, when you want to book them, the further you can book them out, the better, all right? And the 1,000 Trails membership we purchased allows us to book our routes 180 days out for 1,000 Trail parks. And for those parks that aren't specifically 1,000 Trails, we can book out 90 days. Now, the way that works is 1,000 Trails has what they call the Trails Collection, okay? So 1,000 Trails has like 80-something parks that are actual campgrounds that you can stay at. And then they have 100 and something parks that are encore parks, which is part of their Trails Collection. Now, they have a lot more than 100 encore parks. They probably have a couple of hundred or maybe even 300, I don't know, a lot of them. The encore parks themselves have the option to participate in 1,000 Trails or not to participate. And if they do participate, what are the restrictions? Sometimes some of them will charge an extra fee to stay there. Some of them will only allow so many 1,000 Trails people to come in, okay? Encore parks are specifically set up to make money. So they typically are only doing cash. There are no clubs that, other clubs or anything. The only clubs that can get into Thousand Trails is, or into Encore, sorry, is Thousand Trails. However, Encore only lets so many of those in there. One of the issues we have with making our reservations is that Encores, you have to wait till 90 days out, and you don't know what's going on with them. So you got to wait for 90 days out. In the meantime, all these cash paying individuals could have reserved those different areas. Thousand Trails themselves, parks, we can reserve 180 days out. And for the most part, they do take cash sales also, but not to the extent that Encore does. So typically we can book our Thousand Trails parks out 180 days without too much of an issue. Forest Service parks or state parks and things like that will allow you to book, a year out. So when we talk about Encores that will only let you book out 3 months, too much math here, then things start getting to be kind of tight, especially in high seasons for the different areas. And so as we travel around during the summer, we're full-time RVing, we're traveling around. How do we deal with this? Now, if I look here down at the bottom of the map here, and we zoom in here a little bit, you can see that we have 1,000 Trails here that we actually have booked right now. This is the Miami Everglades. These are 2,000 Trails right here that are the Keys, okay, the Florida Keys, the Fiesta Keys and Sunshine Key, Thousand Trails parks right here, and these are the ones that we want to book. Now, that's easy said than done. We have to wait until 90 days before our booking window. Now, if we want to book in Florida, this is the Florida campgrounds, and you can see this list here. There's different ones here. There's quite a few campgrounds, or RV park campgrounds that are in Florida. However, all these ones that have blue or they'll have orange circles, whatever, those are referred to as Encore parks. And so you can see that, wow, the majority of the things in Florida are Encore parks. This one here, Orlando, and this one here, Peace River, those are actual Thousand Trails parks. And so those two, we can book 180 days out, which seems like a long time, and to some of you that might be an eternity, I don't know, but it's really not that far out when people are, you got these, especially in the summertime, it gets difficult because all these families, they're going to go on a vacation for 2 weeks. They're planning way ahead because they don't have any options. They have to get into those specific spots during that time frame, and so they're booking out as far out as they can possibly book. And so we need to be thinking that same way when we're trying to book our trip and everything too. Even though we're full-time wandering around, we're still competing with everybody else. So if I look down here, so that's Peace River and those, the rest of these are all Encores. And I don't know why some are listed in blue and some are orange. I mean, they're Encore, period. Right here is Sunshine Key, and then it has a little dollar sign next to it. What that means, the Fiesta Key, Sunshine Key, anyone that has a dollar next to it means that they're going to charge an extra $20. And remember, Encores, the park themselves determine what they're going to do, right? Okay, so let's just explain that. So the Fiesta Keys, what they've determined is we will allow Thousand Trails people to come in, and what their thing is 10%. They'll allow 10% of Thousand Trail memberships to actually book with Encore, with that park. And for you booking with us, we're going to charge you $20 a night extra than what you, because normally we don't pay anything to camp in a Thousand Trails park. But in the case of these specific ones, these are very high use ones, high demand, they'll go ahead and let that happen, but they're going to charge $20 a night. Now, let's put that in perspective, because if you don't have a membership and you want to stay in the Keys, you're paying into the 200 range a night. So, $20 ain't too bad. And it really depends on the time of season. we started trying to book this. And so let me just click on book here. And I want to book, say, November, or let's see, we are, I don't know if we're where are we at here? Oh, it was up in January. We're 3 months in advance. So let's just say that, and we're going to book this for 3 weeks. Okay. Now, another restriction they may have is that you can only do 2 weeks, like the Orlando 1,000 Trails. You can only be in there during high season for 2 weeks max. Our particular subscription that we have with 1,000 Trails allows us to do 3 weeks park to park in any park, excluding the ones that have special restrictions during special times of the year or whatever. But typically we're moving from park to park, and we can stay up to 3 weeks, which we don't really do too often. But let me just say, hey, this is what we want to select. And then we go ahead and say choose campsite. The first thing that pops up from 1/21 to 2/04, and this is November right now, it says, you know what? There are sites available. 15 days are available starting on 1/21. But you got to call in. So there's 2 different ways of booking sites through 1,000 Trails. The easiest and simplest way by far is just doing it online. You just put in your own information, you hit book, and it comes up and says which campsite style do you want, a member deluxe, a member standard, a back end, a pull through. You choose all that and you're done. Just that fast. Okay. The other option is to call in. And I can tell you right now, every time you call in, the message I get, there's 2 messages I get. First of all, I either get a message that says, okay, we're putting you in a queue and we'll call you back within the hour, okay? Or we're too darn busy and you just have to call back later, and it just hangs up. So those are the 2 different options that you get when you call into 1,000 Trails. Now, I have called in and left a message, and I've had 3 or 4 times now where I never did get a call back. Not sure what happened. But I didn't get called back at all. And so sometimes I'll turn around after an hour and I'll call them. And 2 of those times I've called in that way, I've got a rep right away. So I'm not really sure what's going on with their phone system or what's going on there, but just be aware of that. The nice thing about being able to do it online is I can check every 5 minutes if I want, or every hour, or every few hours or days or whatever. Typically, if people are going to cancel their reservations that they had, they're going to usually do it typically in the morning or evening, because just before they go to work, they go, you know what, we're not going to be able to make that trip, let's just cancel it. So it becomes available. So there's a good chance that you'll be able to grab something then. Or in the evening, they're working it out and they go, we're just not going to be able to do this. And so then they cancel it. So that's a good time too. But that means for this particular resort, this is the keys here. This is Sunshine Key right up here, Sunshine Key. It's saying I have to call in. So no matter what, I can't do this online. I have to call in. And it says there are days available. So that's exciting because there's days available. So I call in and the rep comes back and says, you know what, there's just nothing available. They're completely full. And it's like, what? It says right on the screen here, 15 days are available and I want those. No, what that says is 15 days are available if you want to pay cash. I'm going, what kind of crappy system is this? This is a reservation system for 1,000 Trails, and I'm a member of 1,000 Trails. The only thing that should be showing up here is what's available to me, not if I want to pay cash. All that should be showing up here is telling me, if it came up and said, we are full and there's no chance of you getting in there, then I wouldn't be calling you and wasting your time. And I wouldn't be wasting my time, okay? I actually worked on this for a week and a half trying to get in there because they said, oh, now that it's available on this day, which is like one more day away, one more day away. So I'm calling in and not getting anywhere. The final realistic thing is that there's something going on here. So I actually called the resort and I said, do you have days available? And they said, yeah, we have openings. I go, oh, okay, so why can't I get in there? I'm a 1,000 Trails member. Oh, okay, well, specifically during January and February, that's our high use season and we are booked full all the time. We only give Thousand Trails 10% of what's available. And our park is 400 sites, for example, then we're going to allow 40,000 Trails people to come in, only if there's available sites. So if everyone's willing to pay cash, then you are never going to get offered any sites in Thousand Trails. Wow, that's dramatic. That is really disappointing to find out. And the people on the phone aren't telling me this. They're telling me just call back tomorrow, and you're gonna, then there's a chance you'll get in. According to the park, that is not going to happen. We do not have a chance in anything to get into this park between January and February. A lot better chance in March to get in, and maybe in December we can, might be able to get into the park. But other than that, all the other months we're good, no big deal. But during those key times of the season, you're not getting in there. And our friends told us, hey, if you want to do the Keys, you need to be booking at least a year in advance. Well, we're Thousand Trails, so we figured, 90 days. Nope. We can book out further than most people on Encore. Most Thousand Trails people that buy the Trails collection can only book 60 days out. We can book 90 days. We're special. Not really. Not really. It doesn't, in the case of the Keys, it really doesn't help us out. So how do we deal with this? Because I was talking to another individual, another member, and he says, you know what, I did get into the Keys, but I called in, I just kept calling in, and you can just call in as many times as you want, which seems screwy because they're so busy on the phone, right? But you can call in as many times as you want, and I happened to call in one time, and they said, we just barely had this one come through, and I booked you now for this next week. It's like, well, wait a minute. The park was telling me they don't even offer any. So who knows what's true, and who knows how much time you want to waste calling in every day or every hour or whatever, because the system doesn't really give you a realistic view as to what's going on. But if you're determined enough, then you might do it. So the problem that we run into when we're dealing with this, however, is when you look at our map here, you can see we have a lot of sites that are, that we need to make reservations at. And if we look over here on the left, these are the dates that we're going to be there. Now, the cool thing is that we're full time, and as we go down through this, January, February, March, most families are not on vacation during these months, okay? However, once you get past right about in here, this is Memorial Day weekend, and especially this first week of June, families are now out of school, traditional school. And so they're starting to plan their vacations to go everywhere. So for example, so if I go over here, and you can see this little bouncing green things over here. Oh, that one right there. Am I on it now? Oh, Bar Harbor, Maine. That's Acadia National Park. Now, we went there a couple years ago when we did our big old tour, and we're going to go back because we only spent one day. So we're going to actually stay in 1,000 Trails there now, and that is May 30th. Well, that's the start of when kids are getting out of school and everything, and so having a 180-day reservation window is important to try to jump ahead of all these individuals that are getting out of school and want to go on their 2-week vacation, 2 or 3 week vacation. They don't have any other chance of doing anything. We do, and we have to modify our travels accordingly to fit in to dealing with everybody else, the regular public that's out there all the time. So how do you do that if these are encores? You can't book until 90 days ahead, and then when you finally get there to book, then there's nothing available. Because what happens is there's nothing available there, but if I bring up the map here again and I turn off these filters, you can see that there's a lot of other types of parks, RV parks, state parks, all these different things that are out here. And now that, you know, it's 90 days before that date, most of these are already full. So you're like, oh, shoot. And that's what happened to us. You know, we just looked down here at the Keys. We went down here to the Keys and we started looking at all these different places here. They're full. Nothing available for January, February, because we waited too long. Most people, like our friends said, book all these things out 1 year in advance. And so if I go into any of these state parks and things, they're all booked. So this is the big thing that you need to start looking at, especially when you are full-time and you want to get into wherever it is that you're going, okay? And this goes into hand with also with Harvest Host, Boondockers Welcomes, RPI. You know, those types of services typically only allow you to book out like 2 months in advance. And by that point in time, everything is full if you happen to not get into one of those for some reason because it's so popular, okay? So the best thing to do, this is the thing I wanted to mention to you, was that book out as soon as you can, for example, this state park. If you want to be in the Keys, then you want to book Long Key State Park as soon as it becomes available, which is a year in advance. And you're going to fight like heck to get that. But at least you have a fighting chance. You know, it's going to have openings and you can jump in there. And for those, how many that's in that park. So if we look at this particular one, and they have 60 sites, okay? There's 60 sites that theoretically might be available. You got to remember that they could start booking that like last week, and they could book out, I think it's 2 weeks. So they could book out 2 weeks and you're going to be booking in the middle. So all of a sudden your spot's full here. So you're still going to be dealing with that kind of stress. And that's why I went to the 1,000 Trails membership. It was worth me paying a couple $100s a month to not have that stress anymore. Well, you're going to have to deal with it on these high use areas. All right. So deal with it, make those reservations. And then when it comes time, you know, that's going to cost you, you know, $50, $100 a night. But pay your deposit and everything, and then they usually have, you know, it's going to cost you like maybe $30 to cancel or something like that. But if you get to that date and you can get into the Keys and 1,000 Trails, you can go back and cancel it. If you don't, at least you're in the Keys for that time frame. And so I'm hoping that that really gives you some insight. We do that as we look through this whole place, you know, whole list of where we're going. Especially like up here around DC, we're going into this park right here. You know, any one of these places that's not 1,000 Trails, that's using Forest Service, things like that, that the general public can go into really easily. We are booking those ahead, as far ahead as we possibly can. And then if we get up there and, you know, we come up with something better that's free, that's fine. But at least we've been able to deal with it and we don't have to, you know, worry about it too much. So I hope that helps you out and you don't get as frustrated as I have been. I think that 1,000 Trails is an excellent option. It's well within, I mean, we paid $1,500 down to for a membership, and it's a 4-year membership to their adventure program, and we paid $267 or something like that per month. And you know, for 200 something, when we're full time, 200 something, I mean, less than $300 a month for staying in pretty nice resorts and having full power hookups and everything like that, water and sewer, not having to travel around trying to figure out where to dump and, you know, where we're going to. Power's not as much of an issue for us because we're full solar. But finding water sometimes in some of these places, they're just downright RV unfriendly. And you can't find places to dump, you can't find water to load your water up or anything. So when you have this and it's full-time, it's like, to me, it's like a no-brainer, and that's why we bought it, okay? And the fact that we're booking these out right now, if you look, and we are booked out, we stay at mostly, we're staying mostly at 1,000 Trails. So we're booked out clear to, we're clear up here into Pennsylvania right now. So, or Virginia, yep, Pennsylvania. So this is as far out as we can get right now, which is 6 months. and then we'll be going to Timothy Lake next. That'll be our drop-off point for getting into New York City. So it'll be like a 3-hour ride in the car and 2 hours on the train, but hey, we'll be able to go into New York City. It doesn't cost us anything for staying there that time frame, so that's why we really like it. So anyway, again, hope this helps. Make comments there. Let me know if you come up with any tricks or things. I'd love to know what they are, and so pass it on to others. We are a big happy RV family here, right? So anything that you can pass on to us would be helpful also. But I hope this helps you out. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on our next video, and if not, then hopefully down the road somewhere on this big map. Remember, you can follow us on our map and see where we're at, so reach out to us. So take care. Bye.